you're gonna look at the law and you're gonna be broken. You're gonna be like, yo, there's no way. Like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. Man, I don't know, I can't do this part. But then this verse says, if I broken one, I broken all of them. So even what I do is doo-doo. Right? in that Old Testament survey class that the teacher really pulled out was we reading through the outline basically of Exodus. And he's telling us, like, you know, going through and making all these connections from Genesis and Exodus and stuff like that. And he says, the highlight, do you guys know what the highlight or the pinnacle of Exodus is? And he was like, it's not the crossing of the Red Sea. He was like, it's not receiving the 10 Commandments. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Passover, you know, that God did all these things to free Israel. And you would be like, man, so how it get better than that? Like, the splitting of the Red Sea is kind of lit, right? Right. But he was like, it's in that boring part that you skim over or you just pass all together, where it's talking about the dimensions of the tabernacle, the temple, or the tabernacle. And it's like this many cubits and this color, and I want you to do this and that. And it's like, this is kind of boring. But the reason why that's the pinnacle of the book of Exodus is because for the first time since the garden, God would be dwelling in the midst of his people. And so we read through it and like, oh man, like these dimensions, this is boring. But what are they doing? They're preparing for God to be among them, right? To be among a people who don't deserve his presence, to be among a people who's not welcome in his presence, and hence the law that purifies you so that you can come before him, and so that you can be in covenant with him. You know what I mean? And so it's important to share these different things with non-believers. Is the fact that God wants to dwell with his people, right? As inadequate as you are and as I am. But when he had brought that up, I had to like raise my hand, because, you know, that deity though, right? I'm like, that's crazy, because even greater than what happened in Exodus, with God dwelling with his people for the first time since the garden, is when God became incarnate. And Jesus is born through a virgin. And Jesus not just dwells with his people in a way where, you know, God is moving, because you see the blessings that are happening. You see they're defeating armies when I obey, and Moses is coming and he's saying, this is what God said. And then I'm seeing the fruit of it. But they actually got to see God with their eyes. They got to touch Jesus. And the fact that with the Old Testament, nothing that is unclean can be in God's presence. Even the high priest would have to cleanse himself to go into the holy. What did Jesus do? He came and he touched sinful people. And so if the building of the tabernacle, because God would dwell with the people, would be the pinnacle of Exodus, just following that line all the way through and saying, look, God actually came and experienced our suffering. And he touched sinners who were unclean, and he wasn't defiled by them. But him touching us makes us clean. Like, you have to follow that. You have to follow that all the way. You have to follow that all the way through. So now you know Jesus. Okay, you see him in the New Testament, but if you don't go back and follow that through, you would never understand how
like
crazy.
You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand the implications of what Jesus was doing and how he was smashing all the cultural norms at that time. He was setting such a new pattern for just for Israel, but also the rest of creation. And like you said, for all what they did with the law, then the law became a deity in the sense that, I'll put it like this. We know that the law is perfect because it comes from God. But the thing was, they got, and I'll use this quote by my brother, Pastor Larry Coburn. I was up there preaching. He was up there preaching last week.
From the Berg.
Yeah, he said something. He's in a series, and it's like it was probably I call it the line of the sermon. You know how you have that one line in the sermon that just
you
like
walk away with?
Yeah, it sticks to you. I'm gonna look it up real quick because because I highlighted it, yo. It was crazy. But he was talking about how he said if Satan can't get you to do wrong, he'll make you feel proudful about what you do right.
Which is wrong. Yo, that's wild.
I was like, yo, that was the line of the sermon, because that's what they were. But that's
because so is that what you meant by the law become right, a deity, because it becomes like a god to you?
Right. Me following the law, my righteousness then becomes a sinful thing in my life. It becomes
a stumbling block.
Right. And that's where the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the high priest and the scribes were. They made them doing the law that was their God. And I was like,
that's crazy that you said that, because I heard someone basically say the law is going to do two things. The law for the person who honors the law, in a sense, because you have those who just don't care about the law.
Right.
But the other two people, you're going to look at the law and you're going to be broken. You're going to be like, yo, there's no way. Like, okay, I can do this. I can do that. Man, I don't know. I can't do this part. But then this verse says, if I broken one, I broken all of them. So even what I do is doo-doo, right? Bars, man.
That's bars.
Even what I do is inadequate.